Joe Rogan, a cancel culture critic called out by Carlos Mencia for canceling him. The rap news. It is ironic that a guy who is now saying you shouldn't cancel anybody at least started the building of his podcast by canceling me. Comedian Carlos Mencia says, in 2007, Rogan stepped on the Comedy Store stage to confront Carlos Mencia about allegations of the latter stealing jokes from other comedians in front of the club audience. Brian Redband, Rogan's friend and eventual podcast co-host, filmed the incident. Initially, Rogan suffered. According to the New York Times, the Comedy Store banned Rogan from the club and the comedian's agency dropped him. However, according to the article, Rogan has posted the clips online and had edited them together with the footage of Mencia performing jokes alongside with other comedians telling similar versions of the jokes. The video went viral, ruining Mencia's career and reputation more and more with each click. I had Mencia on, I interviewed him, we sat down and I told him, I said, why don't you go out there and go put a tweet out and say, do you think I should go on Joe Rogan? Joe Rogan, why don't we do it? Mm-hmm. The interview was done, I think, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago maybe. Mm-hmm. Never happened, hasn't happened till today. And he keeps going back to the same place. You both are in this world. This is your space. Mm-hmm. What do you say about what Carlos is saying? I'm going to go to you first, Gerard.
Okay. Well, you know my opinion because we had a conversation, right? So, listen. First of all, let's discuss what cancel culture is. Mm-hmm. Cancel culture is not calling out somebody for deplorable behavior. Cancel culture is trying to bully society into a belief system. Cancel culture is it's actually this thing called cultural hegemony. It comes from the Frankfurt School. It's Antonio Gramsci. There's a real thing that cancel culture is, and the idea is to destabilize any sort of opposition to Marxist ideas. So that's what the quote unquote cancel culture is. It's cultural hegemony. All right, having an opinion on somebody doing something awful is not cancel culture. So one, Ned Furness, who is Carlos Mencia's real name, is trying to use this term, cancel culture, which is a legitimately, in my opinion, evil political tool. It's a manipulation tool. It's gaslighting. It's cultural bullying. All right. It's a witch hunt that is here to shut up opposition to political ideals. That's what cancel culture is. Being called out for stealing Ari Schaefer and Bobby Lee's material when you are the biggest act in the world by somebody who doesn't have the clout that you have is balls. Joe Rogan had balls. What Joe Rogan did is he put his entire career on the line. People may not know this now. Joe Rogan was on a downswing in his career. They had tried to transfer him into a movie star, and he bombed. He didn't make the transition from TV to the movies. He bombed. UFC hadn't started yet, and he hadn't reinvented himself as this. He
was doing Fear Factor. He was doing News Radio.
And
he wasn't able to make it to the movies.
After News Radio, he did Fear Factor. He hated Fear Factor, so he left Fear Factor. Wanted to do movies. The movies bombed. He's going early at the Comedy Store. I've played the Comedy Store. If people don't know, it's the mecca of comedy. It's unbelievable. Playing any rooms there, it's just such an awesome thing to be a part of. It's like getting an at-bat at Yankee Stadium, right? Carlos Mencia closed the place out every night. He was the biggest act in the world. He's the guy Comedy Central gave the Chappelle Show to.
Right.
Okay? So what, imagine a nobody comic, all right? I'm trying to think of something that would make sense today for people that don't know what happened. It would be like, I don't know, it would be like Andy Dick almost walking on stage to Dave Chappelle and calling out Dave Chappelle for stealing other people's material because the other people were like, what am I supposed to do? He's Dave Chappelle. Nobody's going to believe me. And that's what Mencia did. Because not only did Mencia steal the material, but then he had the people whose material he was stealing fired. He had them taken off the stage at the store. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't enough that he took their act. Yeah. He then killed their career. This dude is like, it's about as evil as you could be in the comedy industry. Now his whole point is, well, people did this for years. People always did this. Robin Williams stole jokes, right? But we didn't have the material on tape. We didn't have the material on tape. This is something that white comics were accused of stealing. Black comic stuff for years. They were accused of stealing, like Red Fox. Richard Pryor would talk about it, and who just died? Paul Mooney would talk about this all the time at Caroline's. He'd say like, "Oh, this joke is XYZ." There is parallel thinking, which is a real thing. There's only so many jokes. There's only so many premises. All right, and how you put those two things together is yours. Your material is yours, and there's a lot of crossover in comedy. There's only 7 stories. This man was stealing people's stuff. This is no different than this guy coming in. This is our work. My material is my work.
It's your currency.
It's
your words are your currency.
If you had an auto dealership And then the biggest auto dealership in the world came and just took your cars, and you're just supposed to be like, I don't know, what am I supposed to do? No, you have to be like, bro, what Rogan did was valiant. It was not cancel culture. And the fact that he is still this many years later trying to equate those two things tells you exactly who this person is.
Oh, of course. He's going to use the word cancel culture because that's, the word of the moment right now. But basically, he got exposed. He got exposed.
Yep.
Exposed is the word that happened.
Absolutely.
You were doing something wrong, and someone had the balls, like you said, to be like, I don't know about all this. Because you saw what happened to Rogan. His agency fired him.
Yeah.
He got kicked off gigs. He wasn't doing anything more. And then he put the clips out there, and people were like, you know what? Rogan was actually right here. He exposed him. It's not any different than like what Edward Snowden did for the NSA, and he exposed what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
So, you run the risk of getting literally, like, Rogan could have got canceled. He was canceled by his agency. Exactly. He was canceled. The ironic part is that he exposed Ned or Carlos, however you want to call him, and the market took over and said, no, we're actually with Joe Rogan on this.
This actually goes back to what Pat said earlier about
bad
how
ideas.
bad ideas get exposed.
By the way, Kai Green is watching a podcast. He just joined us. Kai, I got a simple question for you, man. Are you competing in 2021 Mr. Olympia? And if you missed some of the ideas I had a few minutes ago and you watch this rerun of the podcast, go to hour 25, hour 23 and watch it for a few minutes. By the way, Phil is saying call him.
Phil said call
If you can call him now, we'll get him on. If he wants to call you, we'll dial him in.
Wow.
But I just texted Carlos Mencia, okay? And
just now.
I just texted Carlos Mencia. So if you're watching this, Carlos, I want to bring you back and let's sit down on the podcast and let's talk about this. It's been a couple years. Here's what I'm a big fan of, and there's opportunities in life, because to me, if you were to name a country, the greatest country in the world for redemption, what would you say is the greatest
USA,
country in the world?
baby.
This is the
We
greatest,
love an underdog.
greatest country in the world for redemption.
This is the comeback world.
And by the way, is it fair to say that all of us are grateful the fact that there is this concept of redemption in this great country? Everybody at this table. Everybody at this table, right? Okay. So I'm all for redemption. But the part that is frustrating is not capitalizing on the opportunities you have to redeem yourself, and you keep
be authentic, Pat.
You keep digging. So, folks, if you're watching this, if you'd like to see Carlos come on, I've interviewed Carlos Mencia on the Valuetainment channel. If you haven't found it, if you go type in Valuetainment and Bet David and Mencia, you'll see the interview. It's pretty entertaining to watch. Probably one of my favorite interviews. You'll see a lot there. But if you'd like to see Carlos join us on the podcast, not interview, send him a tweet, hashtag PBD Bet David, and I'll let's. If other people want to see that, we'll invite them. If this is something that you would be interested to see Carlos come here, tell us on Twitter. If not, totally get it. But if you do, go on Twitter and let us know if you want to see Mencia.
For any young comics that are watching, if there are any young comics or anybody wanting to be a comic, okay, this is something Lenny Marcus told me. Lenny Marcus, if you don't know who he is, very, 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 very funny comic. He's a 25-year vet. He's a curmudgeon. Name dropping. I was at Stand Up New York doing a show with him and Todd Barry, who's got a stadium tour now, one of the funniest dudes of all time. And they both said the same thing. It costs $25. Copyright your jokes, because one of the bigger things that happens, I was
actually going to ask you that, if that's even possible.
Copyright your jokes, and one of the biggest thing that happens isn't what Carlos Mencia did. The biggest thing with Carlos Mencia is that it wasn't that he stole the jokes, it's that he tried to ruin these guys' career. Instead of being like, bro, I'll give you a writing credit and I'll elevate you. Look, what do you need? You need $500? Here's $500, all right, and a writing credit. I need this joke. All right, I'm rich now. Rich people aren't funny. I don't connect with the common man anymore.
Rich people aren't funny.
All right, here's the deal. This is what you got.
Elon Musk is pretty funny.
No, they are funny.
Seinfeld's going to have a bone to pick with you there, homie.
Well, they're very funny. I'm just saying that's the idea. The idea that comics have, especially when they've come from the streets, is that once I make it, I'm no longer relatable.
That's why Jamie Foxx always has like some leaky faucet in his house.
Yeah.
Something that like the everyman, he's like, I don't want my house to be perfect.
Well, Ellen,
I want some weird shit happening in my house.
Smoke detector beeping.
Exactly.
In Ellen's last special, she addressed it and it was perfect. She was like, they said you're a billionaire with a daytime show. You can't identify with the common person anymore. And I told my butler that was ridiculous. Like, it was a great line, just
that's why PBD always has a broken TV in his house. He keeps a big crack in the middle of his TV.
But the bigger thing than what Carlos Mencia did It's a huge, huge problem in New York is advertising agencies will go to a comedy show and there'll be these people who work in marketing and there'll be copywriters and they'll see a joke and they'll be like, wow, that's going to be great on State Farm. And they will just completely steal a bit and it'll wind up in a commercial.
By the way, if you're
all the
watching,
time.
So if you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here's another short segment to watch. Or if you want to see the entire podcast, click over here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.